Welcome to the Amber Archive. Look at the ocean. Vast, deep, unforgiving. It covers more of our world than land ever will. Beneath those restless waves, in the crushing darkness where the sunlight cannot reach, lies silence. But legends say, once there was noise, once there was light, once there was a civilization so advanced, so wealthy, and so powerful that it rivaled the gods themselves. We preserve the stories trapped in time. This is a quiet space for deep focus, study, and contemplation. Tonight, we are not just retelling a myth. We are taking a journey back into the lost history of Atlantis. We will walk the concentric rings of the great city. We will smell the Orichalcum smelting in the fires. We will witness the blood of the sacred bulls spilling over the pillars of law. And we will witness the terrible day and night that swallowed it whole. We know it as Atlantis. For over 2,000 years, poets, historians, explorers, and dreamers have searched for it. From the sands of the Sahara to the icy waters of Antarctica, humanity has been haunted by the ghost of this lost city. But why? Why does a story told by a Greek philosopher in 360 BC still grip our collective imagination today? Is it just a story, a warning, or is it a memory encoded in our blood? So, dim the lights, let the outside world fade away. Let us open the ancient texts of Plato and find the truth. To understand the end, we must begin at the source. The story of Atlantis doesn't come to us from a fairy tale book found in a nursery. It comes from one of the greatest minds in human history, Plato. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC, Plato introduces us to this forgotten empire. But he doesn't frame it as a metaphor. Through the character of Critias, he insists, strange though it is certainly true. Critias recounts a story passed down from his grandfather, who heard it from the great lawmaker Solon. Solon, in turn, had traveled to Egypt. There, in the ancient city of Sai, the Egyptian priests mocked him. They said, "O Solon, Solon, you Greeks are always children." They claimed that while Greece had forgotten its history due to floods and disasters, Egypt had remembered. Egypt had the records of a mighty power that existed 9,000 years before their own time, a power that came out of the Atlantic Ocean. The priests described an island situated in front of the straits which we call the Pillars of Hercules, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. This island, they said, was larger than Libya and Asia combined. It was the way to other islands, and from these you could pass to the whole of the opposite continent that surrounded the true ocean. Think about that for a moment. Plato, writing centuries before Columbus, describes a continent on the other side of the Atlantic. Is this a lucky guess, or a remnant of lost geographical knowledge? The priest told Solon that this great power, Atlantis, tried to enslave the entire Mediterranean. But Athens, in a prehistoric golden age, stood alone against them and won. But the victory was short-lived. Violent earthquakes and floods occurred, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared in the depths of the sea. Let us reconstruct the city in our minds. Close your eyes and imagine. Plato gives us incredible specific details. This was not a chaotic city. It was a masterpiece of engineering and sacred geometry. The central island was surrounded by alternating rings of sea and land, 2 rings of land and 3 of water. These rings were connected by massive bridges and tunnels wide enough for a trireme ship to sail through beneath the earth. They dug a massive canal, 300 feet wide and 100 feet deep, connecting the rings to the open ocean, turning the landlocked zones into thriving ports. The stone they used to build the city was quarried from the island itself. One kind was white, another black, and a third red. Imagine the aesthetic. Buildings of striking contrast, red, white, and black stone, weaving together in a natural mosaic. Some buildings were simple, while others were pieced together in multicolored patterns to please the eye, a testament to their artistic mastery. And everywhere, there was metal. The walls of the outer ring were coated in brass, shining like fire. The inner ring was coated in tin, reflecting the light like a mirror, and the wall surrounding the central citadel flashed with the red light of orichalcum. Orichalcum, a metal second only to gold in value, now lost to time. The entire city would have glowed under the sun, a beacon of fire in the middle of the ocean. In the very center stood the temple of Poseidon and Plato. This was holy ground. Surrounded by a golden enclosure, the temple itself was covered in silver, with pinnacles of gold. Inside, the roof was made of ivory, variegated with gold, silver, and orichalcum. Inside stood statues of gold, the god Poseidon standing in a chariot, driving 6 winged horses, so tall that his head touched the roof. Around him were 100 Nereids riding on dolphins. The scale of their wealth was simply incomprehensible to the modern mind. The island was rich. It provided everything needed for life. There were elephants on the island, reminding us of the prehistoric megafauna. There were aromatic roots, woods, gums, flowers, and fruits. The fruit that has a hard rind and affords drink and meat and ointment, perhaps the coconut. It was a paradise, a utopia. Hot and cold springs flowed freely, planted with trees to create natural baths. Some were open to the air, others enclosed for winter, with separate baths for the kings, for private citizens, and even for the horses. The military might of Atlantis was equally staggering. Plato describes a system of organization that rivals modern armies. The royal city alone could field 10,000 chariots. There were 1,200 ships. There were archers, slingers, stone shooters, and heavy infantry numbering in the hundreds of thousands. It was a war machine built for global conquest, but it was not their weapons that held them together. It was their law. The kings of Atlantis, descendants of Poseidon, ruled with wisdom. They possessed true virtue. They despised everything but virtue. They cared little for their gold and property, seeing it merely as a burden compared to the value of friendship and honor. There was a sacred ritual, described by Plato in chilling detail, that kept them bound to the law. In the temple of Poseidon, bulls ranged freely. Every 5 or 6 years, the 10 kings of Atlantis would gather. They would hunt these bulls, not with guns or iron weapons, but with staves and nooses to capture one alive. When they caught one, they would lead it to a pillar of orichalcum inscribed with the ancient laws. There, over the pillar, they would slit the throat of the bull, letting its blood pour over the sacred inscription. They would then mix this blood with wine in a golden bowl. Each king would dip a golden cup into the mixture, pour a libation over the fire, and swear a terrible oath. They swore to judge according to the laws written on the pillar and to punish anyone who had broken them. They would drink the wine and dedicate the golden cup to the temple, never to be used again. Then, as night fell and the fire burned down to embers, they would put on robes of the most beautiful dark blue, sit on the ground in the darkness, and judge each other. For generations, this ritual held. The divine nature remained in them. They were obedient to the laws and well-affectioned towards the god. But nothing lasts forever. Even paradise has a shelf life. Slowly, over centuries, the divine portion within them began to fade. It became diluted, mixed too often with mortal nature. The human temper began to dominate. They could no longer carry their prosperity with moderation. To the wise, they appeared base, having lost the fairest of their precious gifts. But to those who had no eye to see the true happiness, they appeared glorious and blessed at the very moment they were becoming full of avarice and unrighteous power. This is the core of the Atlantis tragedy. It is not just a story about a sinking island. It is a story about us, about human nature. When we have too much, when we become too comfortable, we lose our way. We start to want more. We want to conquer. We want to play God. Zeus, the god of gods who rules by law and is able to see into such things, perceived that an honorable race was in a woeful plight. He wanted to inflict punishment on them that they might be chastened and improve. Plato's dialogue Critias ends abruptly here. Zeus gathers all the gods into his most holy habitation and speaks. But the rest of the text is lost. We don't know what Zeus said. The sentence cuts off mid-thought. However, we know what happened next. The punishment was not a lecture. It was annihilation. But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods. and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. A single day and night. Imagine the panic. The red glow of the Orichalcum walls extinguished by the black ocean, the screams silenced by the roar of the water, the accumulated knowledge, art, science, and architecture of thousands of years erased. The sea became impassable and impenetrable, blocked by the mud which the island created as it settled. And then, silence. The ocean returned to its rhythm. The waves rolled on, indifferent to the empire they had just swallowed. Atlantis was gone. Did Atlantis really exist? Was it the Minoan civilization on Thera? Was it in the Caribbean or Antarctica? Perhaps it doesn't matter where it was. What matters is what it represents. Atlantis is the ultimate symbol of loss. It is the golden age we all feel we have lost. And it is a timeless warning about hubris, excessive pride. The Atlanteans had everything, but they wanted more. They tried to reach beyond their limits. They tried to defy the natural order. This desire to defy nature, to play God, is a dangerous path. It is a path tread by civilizations and by individuals. Thousands of years later, another figure in literature would make the same mistake. Not an empire, but a man. A man who, like the Atlanteans, used his knowledge to create life, only to be destroyed by his own ambition. His name was Victor Frankenstein. If you want to understand the terrifying consequences of ambition unchecked and the true meaning of the modern Prometheus, you should listen to this analysis next. Thank you for joining us in the Amber Archive. If this deep dive into lost history resonated with you, subscribe for more analyses of the myths and classics that shaped our world. And let us know in the comments. Do you believe Atlantis is a real memory or just a warning? Until next time, remain curious.